If I were talking to a young woman today, I would ask her, do you have any idea what it was like before Roe v. Wade? I'd ask, if you were pregnant today and you couldn't have an abortion, what would you do? I mean, have you ever thought about that? What would you do?
My name is Cecilia Wambach, and I was born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 1942.
Thelma. I was born in 1943, raised in Venice, California.
Selenia del Sol. My family is from Puerto Rico, but I was born in New York City in 1958.
Jean Wilcox. I was born in the north of England, 1937.
Olivia Hereford, Los Angeles, California, in 1950.
Judy Beckman, and I was born in Brooklyn, New York, 1927.
One morning, I woke up. This was after the Dobbs-Jackson decision, and I knew I had to do something.
Victoria had the idea. She woke up, she'd been worrying like me, what are we going to do about Dobbs? And Victoria woke up one morning and said, well, what do I know how to do? Oh, I know how to write a play. And Martha Posey lives here, and she's an old friend of mine, and she knows how to write a play.
Do we need to run the lines before we do this? Just run the lines? All right, just the lines, please.
All rise, the Supreme Court of the United States.
So we put an article in the newspaper, the little Rossmoor News, and asked for women to write to us and tell us their stories of abortions that they had pre-Roe. Because I knew that the stories that they would tell had incredible parallels to today.
So we collected the stories, went through them, edited them, picked out parts, and began to write the play.
To take away this constitutional right.
It was important for women to not only write things down, but then it was important for the telling of them.
I never told anyone about my abortion.
That isn't something we've seen historically with abortion, right? Abortion has been something that remains a secret until your deathbed. And so having people speak out publicly, but even making a play about it, that's sort of bringing abortion out of the closet and ending those silences.
The name of the play is Voices from the Silenced.
We held auditions, and like in any audition, directors look for that spark.
My first name is Lee Gale. My last name is Gruen. And the year I was born, 1941. I went to work as a probation officer after I graduated college. And that was my career for 37 years. And when I retired at the age of 60, I fell into acting.
Joanna Trolson, and I was born in 1945. I've never acted before. I told that to Victoria. I was there to support her in her new project.
I'm Roberta Lemons, 1943. I don't think of myself as an actor. I don't think of myself as a designer. I'm a technician.
Christine Josephine Kumla. I was born in 1948. I've done a lot of theater, both in the States and in Europe. I have a graduate degree in drama therapy, which is kind of what this is.
Lynn Forett, 1945. Well, I'm a natural-born actor, but not professionally. Very comfortable in front of an audience, don't have any stage fright, but I've never really participated in real plays because when I was growing up, I was always too tall.
So whether the spark was within women who had experience or in acting or not, made no difference to me, made no difference to Martha. We went with the spark.
That day when everyone who had auditioned were finished, she says, well, why don't you read? I said, Are you kidding me? I don't know how to do this. So I just read. All I know is I really felt the need to speak for these people.
I did not intend to have any more children.
Having had an abortion in 1968, before Roe versus Wade, I had just sort of scoffed it off as to nothing and really ignored it for all of these years. Never was embarrassed to talk about it, but really never dealt with the emotions before I read other women's stories and then my own came up.
Learning the parts, performing the parts, it became something bigger than what it had started out as.
I have been an actor for years and years, and this is the most exciting thing I have ever done in my life. I grieve for the rights our Constitution has given to everyone who lives in our beloved country, but the government has denied.
I never told anyone about my abortion.
Could never tell anyone.
I never told anyone.
This is the first time.
The first time.
So I felt it was time for us all to come together and share our stories, many of which have never been told before.
Pre-Roe. Oh, yes. Scary, scary, scary. I tried very hard not to be scared, but they put me on the table. You want all this?
So it was a Friday morning. My fiance and his father and I drove down to Tijuana because abortion was illegal in the States.
4 miles south of San Diego, we come to the Mexican border town of Tijuana, and some of the fanciest abortion parlors to be found anywhere on the continent.
2 men who were complete strangers met us. They put me in their car, and to my horror,
They blindfolded me. My fiance and to-be father-in-law could not go with me.
they didn't speak any English, and my 5 years of studying Spanish failed me.
I was guilt-ridden, ashamed, disgusted, fearful. I can't even describe how I felt.
And I was desperate. I had a husband who was adamant that he did not want any more children and would not be part of raising any children.
When all this went down, I was in the middle of my senior year, and I'm starting to get all of these acceptance letters from college. And so I was just thrilled. I had all this choice of what I wanted to do. And then this happened. I got pregnant. I remember having that hard conversation with my father and how he listened, and basically he said, well, what do you want to do?
So what happened to me was that I left the convent when I was 30 years old. And it was the sexual revolution. Everybody was doing everything with everybody. And I felt like I had to make up for lost time. And so if these men would ask me out, I would go out with them.
Abortions were completely illegal back then, and nobody talked about them. And to the best of my knowledge, nobody apart from me had them. That wasn't true, of course.
This was something that happened to them 40, 50 years ago, and that they'd been holding that inside for so long and were finally able to speak their story. That gave me chills. That still gives me chills.
We have to tell our story. We have to show up as who we are so that people see that they're not alone.
It's a performance that's from people's individual experiences. And when people tell their individual experiences, they're no longer personal, but they become universal.
So we knew it was illegal, but we were young, dumb girls. All we knew is that we were pregnant, and if we, and that we needed an abortion, and if we got caught, we would risk the possibility of going to prison. We weren't that savvy in those days. We were probably more savvy about the Vietnam War than we were about abortion.
I didn't know at the time whether it was legal or illegal. All I knew, if the Catholic Church said it was illegal or it was immoral or it was unconscionable to even think about it, talk about it. There was no choice for women at all.
So at various points you had, for example, New York and Hawaii repealed their criminal abortion laws, so people with resources would travel to those states.
I was living in New York City. My brother called me because his girlfriend needed an abortion, and my friends were calling me, and I was an ex-nun.
I could not get the Catholic girl out of me.
And I felt like I was running an abortion clinic. They were staying at my house, and they were going the next day to have their abortions. I was just filled with crime and sin, and it was a horrible time in my life because I felt like I was doing something terribly, terribly wrong.
Oh, God, if you will get me out of this, I will pray every day. I will go to confession.
And then I got pregnant.
Before 1973, women's options really depended on the time period and on their zip code. But for women who either didn't have access to contraception or weren't familiar with contraception or educated about contraception, it's worth emphasizing sex education wasn't that common.
I'm not doing that.
Me either. My dog does that.
We found that we could divide the play up into several sections. There was shame. There was the decision making. Should I not have an abortion? Can I have an abortion? Do I have enough money to have an abortion? The third section was the abortion itself. Then there was a grief ritual, which was a kind of lamentation. A lamentation over all the lives that had been lost pre-Roe.
There was a sort of whisper network among women about the quality of care you could receive from certain underground providers, and there were some kind of principled providers with medical training who could offer relatively safe care. And there were many others who were not safe and were not qualified to perform abortions.
So you might ask a friend, if you were pregnant or if your best friend was pregnant, where could I go to get an abortion? And they would say, well, I heard of this woman or I heard of this man, and they're supposed to be safe and they're supposed to be good, and I can get the phone number for you. So it was definitely an underground network that was going on at the time.
We called ourselves the Janes, and we put notices up on bulletin boards all over Chicago. The schools, the university, the places where women shopped. Notices with phone numbers that said, pregnant, anxious, call Jane. And we got hundreds of calls.
So we called and made an appointment. And I remember he said, make it look like you're visiting and you're bringing me a present. Doesn't have to have anything in it, but wrap a present. I thought that was funny. And proceeded.
We arrived at a clinic. They took the blindfold off, gave me a little anesthesia, and then the doctor announced that I was farther along than I thought and that I would have to stay overnight. My cervix had to be dilated, and that would take an overnight procedure. And I begged not to stay in the clinic by myself, so they put the blindfold back on. We found a hotel, stayed overnight, and then the drill began the next morning. Into the car without them, find blindfold on, and that horrible journey to the clinic.
I found a little storefront on Melrose Avenue in Hollywood, and this man who I have no idea if he was a doctor. I'm sure he wasn't.
It was really very clandestine, late at night, going to this stranger's house. She had laid out on a coffee table a bunch of newspaper and towels. She had a coat hanger with a catheter at the end of it.
It hurt. I immediately began to bleed. She told me it would be like having my period. My dad paid her, and he took me home.
And I said, this is so painful. Can you give me anything? He said, you should have thought of that earlier, dearie, don't you think?
I don't condone your immorality. And if I help you, you can never tell anyone.
It was a horrendous, disrespectful, mean-spirited thing that he did, plus which he got a lot of money for it.
So I went in and yes, sure enough, you lay down on the table. He brings the sort of syringe thing in, inserts it, and starts to pull. Well, he said, just as he began that, he said, let me bring my daughter in just to hold your hand, because we're not going to give you any kind of painkiller. I held the hand of a 12-year-old girl. The pain was excruciating. And he pulled the syringe, and the fetus came out. Thank God that young girl was there. I can only imagine what the rest of her life was like.
So the bleeding didn't stop for several days. It started to get, very, very dark and looked like it was infection. And, I could tell that, I very, very, very close to my father. I could feel his fear. He took me to an emergency room. I'd had a parental infection that was getting close to being septic. And basically, I came very close to death.
We had this silent journey home, which was about 4 hours back to California. They delivered me to my nursing dorm. And there I was met with my roommate, who I told about my abortion because I was afraid that I would be bleeding, infected, or worse yet, maybe die. I wanted somebody to know what had happened. And she shunned me, wouldn't talk to me, and didn't talk to me for the rest of our nursing career. She, in fact, asked to change roommates the next morning.
If it happened to you, you would not tell anyone about. You certainly wouldn't tell your parents. Oh, no, that would bring shame on the whole family. You might tell a very, very close friend, but even then, maybe not, because you would be looked down upon.
As she wheeled me down the hall, she was doing her rosaries and telling me the whole way down that I was committing the most awful of sins and I was murdering a human being. And I just had to keep telling myself, I know this is my decision and I've thought about it and this decision is right.
I believed I could handle this predicament like a grown-up.
If you were a grown-up, you wouldn't be in this predicament.
Of course I'm going to get pregnant because I wasn't using anything. I mean, I was naive and I was gullible and I was in a panic. And I said, I can't do this. I can't have an abortion. I can't kill this baby. I mean, we were brainwashed about that. But I did. I didn't know what else to do.
And you are going to hell if you have an abortion. Now, I will pray for your baby's soul, and I will pray for your soul, but you are going to hell. You are going to hell.
So how would my life be different? I wouldn't have a lot of this baggage that I had. And I got married after that. Do you think I told my ex-husband? No, he's an ex-priest. He wouldn't have even married me, I'm sure. I mean, whatever. I don't know what he thought about my background, but he has no idea.
It was 1964 in San Francisco. I was 27. I lived alone.
Met a guy and brought him back. We used to do that a lot back then.
Had too much to drink, brought him home, usual story. When I found that I was pregnant, I called him. He was dismayed and offered every possible support.
And I never heard from him again. So I was on my own.
If men could get pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament.
I was working as a secretary in an office. I didn't have much money, had no one to turn to. But I remembered an acquaintance who was a physician. And I phoned him hoping he might give me a referral. To my surprise, he offered to perform it himself. I went to sleep, he performed it, and he took me home. And the next day I woke up and found I was still pregnant. I still had the morning sickness and all of that. I phoned him, he said, "You haven't had enough water." And I gave him an important comment about the water. And then I said, "I think you need to do it again." He said, "All right, I'll come over and get you." Took me back to his house. He said, "This time you stay awake." And it was very, very unpleasant, staying awake through an abortion. But I did, because I had to. And afterwards, when it was all over, he raped me. And I didn't fight. I was too weak. Then he took me home again.
We know what we have experienced. And the young women are now having that similar experience, which infuriates me.
If you got pregnant, which my sister did, you had to get married. That was a given. My mother had to get married. My grandmother had to get married. My sister's daughter had to get married. For them, there was no choice. For my family, there was no choice. For the mother, for anyone.
If I had had the baby, my life would have been so different. I would never have been able to finish my degree, my master's. I had a wonderful life, you know. I was at the University of California for 38 years, a solid, good career that I was happy. I got married, I had my daughter, my son.
So I was in the hospital for about 3 days after that, and the whole mood turned when my father visited me one day with more letters, more acceptance letters from colleges. And we both knew that we had done the right thing. And thank God, I made it through it.
I grieve for my sisters who are Black or brown or Native or too poor or too unsupported to find access to an abortion.
Voices showed to me how my story could be reacted to by how many? 400 people who came to see it in 5 performances. And they all related to it, and it made me feel it was a horrible story, but I survived, and I'm glad that I did.
Now that I'm this age, I feel like I'm coming out about this and about what happened to me, especially since Roe versus Wade has now been overturned.
When I saw the play, I just was relieved that it's out and that maybe we can all do something so that this won't happen again.
I'm very aware of the power of words in changing policy, public policy. It was just thrilling to know that I still could contribute in some way.
So telling my story about my abortion on stage in front of a live audience was a way of warning and preparing women of this generation for fighting the struggle that we had to fight.
I grieve for the pain so many of us have had to endure. And I grieve for the women who died in back alley abortions.
Would you like to go back and do it the way they did 50 years ago? To make a choice about your health, about your life? Because we should not have to go backwards. We should not have to go to back alley abortions and risk our lives.
We have today heard stories of betrayal and loneliness and fear, which are often difficult to listen to. But the thrill of telling such stories, the freedom of it, is profound.
Hopefully, after hearing all of these stories of so much pain and so much suffering and so much shame, frankly, of the pre-Roe period, young women today will go, oh my God, I had no idea that that was the case. And they'll wonder, I wonder if this is the case today. How has Dobbs made this the same situation today?